50 AM, The Ticket.
I love this week. I got the AFC and the NFC championship games to look forward to, the coaching carousel, which I love paying attention to. So these guests, Prater, these new teammates, if you will, really pump me up. We're joined right now, welcome back to Idaho Sports Talk, from the newest member of our team. We finally convinced him to ditch that cute little side hustle called offensive coordinator for Boise State and bring him home and get the analysis and the opinions of one Dirk Koetter to our wonderful listeners here in Boise, Idaho. Coach Koetter, welcome back to Idaho Sports Talk. We got you for the next few weeks. We're going to overload you most likely with questions, but we love having you on, and welcome back, Coach. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me. And shoot, I had to come back. You guys pay more.
We do. I love it.
Even though JP said the check's in the mail, you really believe it's going to show up one day, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm out there checking every day at 4:30. I'm out there in my mailbox.
Nice.
For it.
That's when Dirk Koetter's mailman comes at 4:30. Coach, we heard today that, Kellen Moore kind of made the first round of the interview process with the Carolina Panthers yesterday. They held on to him. They told him not to leave, stick around, and come back today. So we went through either an extended first interview or a second interview altogether with Frank Reich and Steve Wilkes, who you both know. What's the difference? How is the prep? What does the process different from a second interview to a first interview? What do you think Kellen went through today, Coach? You've been through this thing.
Yeah. So, on a second interview, in the case of the three guys you mentioned, I mean, two of those guys have previous head coaching experience in the NFL. So on the second day, they're probably really drilling down on, okay, who are you going to bring with you? Like they're always asking you about your staff. And a lot of people don't realize in the NFL, you can't just hire anybody you want to hire. If guys are under contract with another team, unless you're making them a coordinator, they can't get out of those other contracts. So many times when you're a new head coach in the NFL, you're selecting from guys whose contracts were up, or guys who were unemployed, or guys who were coming out of the college ranks. Another thing that's become a lot more in vogue these days is sometimes these teams will try to pair up guys, like they've interviewed 10 guys for the job, and they might be saying, hey, Kellen, if we hired you as the offensive coordinator, would you take Joe XYZ as your defensive coordinator? And they're trying to pair guys up that they, either the GM and or ownership thinks would be a good pair. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Like I always felt like I knew coaches better than they did. And so like I always said, hey, let me pick my own staff. I know how to pick coaches and I know how to put a staff together. But I think a lot of these teams nowadays are interviewing about 10 guys and then they're cutting it down to like between 3 and 5, having second interviews where they really dig in to what your staff's like, what's your everyday like, and just to get to know you better.
Dirk Koetter talking Kellen Moore, Carolina Panthers, second interview today. Dirk, is it possible, or with the Carolina Panthers, the people that are doing the interviewing today, expect Kellen Moore to show up with a couple of names like, here's my DC, here's my OC? Does he have an idea who the top hierarchy of his staff could be?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like you go in with a list, but one of the things I found is, in the not too distant past, guys would go in there and they'd say, yeah, I'm going to have Vince Lombardi as my defensive coordinator and George Allen as my offensive coordinator and Don Shula as my special teams coach.
Nice.
And, it wasn't realistic. And now, like I said, the ownership and the GMs and the people that are in the interview room, they want to know names and they're checking on it and they're finding out, okay, is that person under contract with another team? Can we actually get that person? And, some guys have baggage. There's some guys that maybe somebody in the organization and somebody in the hiring process doesn't want. So, you might go in. I always had on my list, I'd always have about 3 or 4 deep at every position of guys that I would say, hey, these are the guys on my list as the quarterback coach. These are the guys as the DB coach. These are the guys as a special teams coach. And then you're not going to get everybody you want.
Dirk Koetter, our NFL playoff correspondent with us. And, maybe this is something you have to convince of the owner. I'm not sure, but just the respect that a head coach commands into the league. You have to walk into that room every day in front of successful grown men and have their trust and attention. I mean, is that a developed skill, coach? Can you see certain assistants that maybe have it and don't? Because I remember you on Hard Knocks, you went in that meeting room. I mean, you're dropping a few F-bombs here and there. You had their respect, and obviously that's a must, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. And if you listen closely, one of the buzzwords that is out there these days is vision. Like, of course, every coach that's interviewing is going to say, yeah, my goal is to win the Super Bowl, to win our division, get in the tournament, and get to the Super Bowl. But they want to, hey, what is your vision? What is the head coach's vision of how we're going to get there? How are we going to practice? What are our days off? How many days are we going to go in fall camp before we give them a day off? What are you going to do if a guy gets arrested? What are you going to do if a guy gets a DUI?
Okay.
Who's your strength coach going to be? They're just drilling down on all of that stuff. But the buzzword there is vision. What is the head coach's vision? Because you're the one. It's so much different than college, because in college the head coach is out of the building a fair amount, and the strength coach is executing the head coach's vision. But in the pros, you're with them all the time. You're in there with them. You're not out recruiting. So you're the one standing up in front of the room, and yeah, sure, you can have other guys talk, but they're looking at you for answers every day.
Dirk Koetter, we want to dive into this weekend's games, but I got one more quick coaching question, just kind of out of the blue, and I think you can relate to this one pretty well. I'm very, very intrigued by David Shaw to the Denver Broncos. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think it is. I think maybe that's where Sean Payton ends up, but you've made the transition from college football coach to NFL head coach, and David Shaw has always been this great ambassador for college football, especially here in the West, and I'd be very curious to see how we could do in the NFL. How do you know David? Could he be an NFL head coach, and would the Denver Broncos have any interest in that guy?
Yeah, I know Coach Shaw just a little bit. His staff, he brought his staff out and visited with us the first time I was in Atlanta. Coach Shaw has a real good understanding of the NFL, because his dad was a long-time NFL player and coach. So he grew up in that environment. And I think I'm hearing from my connections that he is in the final three, along with Sean Payton and DeMeco Ryans, that those are the three finalists. And I think his main in right there is the fact that they're using Condoleezza Rice, Stanford grad, on their selection committee. There is a big learning curve, but Coach Shaw, again, he grew up in it, being around it with his dad. And it'll be interesting to see if it comes to fruition. He had Stanford rolling there for a few years, and they kind of tailed off here lately. But he'd be fine. It would kind of surprise me if they picked him over some of those other candidates they've interviewed. But hey, one thing I learned in the NFL, nothing is too surprising.
Dirk, I want to get to the games, and I'm going to start, Coach, with the AFC Championship game, a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. And I'm just in love with Joe Burrow. He just astonishes me watching him play, and how the weapons he has and how they use him, and just how he operates. What are your thoughts when you watch Joe Burrow play in just his third year, Coach? Here he is again, back against Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship.
Yeah, wow is the main thing I can say. Is, for them to go into Buffalo last week, I kept waiting for that O-line, missing three starters, but the Bengals dominated the line of scrimmage on both the O-line and especially the D-line, and Burrow is just off the charts. Now, the one thing, as good as he's playing, he's got really good players around him. I mean, those three wide receivers are as good as anybody has.
Yep.
We had Hayden Hurst in Atlanta. I'm really excited that Hayden Hurst is getting a chance to prove himself. He's getting a lot of balls thrown to him, and then they got a good 1-2 punch at running back. But Burrow, I mean, that name Joe Cool certainly fits him. He has been cool under pressure. The thing he's doing so much better this year is he's not holding the ball. He's not taking those sacks.
Okay.
I'm a Chiefs fan because I'm close with Andy Reid, but man, it's hard to not think that the Bengals are going to give them all they want in Kansas City this week.
All right, Dirk Koetter, here's the shortest question I've ever asked you. Why is Brock Purdy? What makes him so good at what he's doing right now?
Well, I think people in Boise will understand more than anything. I think Brock Purdy is Kellen Moore. I mean, I think he's a guy that's extremely cerebral. He understands how to play within the system he's in. He doesn't make very many negative plays. He knows he has a really good defense, and he's got excellent skill people around him. And then that Shanahan offensive system it's the hottest thing in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
A bunch of teams are trying to copy it, but Kyle is the master of it. But I think Purdy's just, I was shocked when they traded all those picks to go after Trey Lance. Like I didn't see it. And I did a lot of work on those quarterbacks coming out that year. I was shocked. I was shocked that they liked him better than they liked Garoppolo. And now here they are with Purdy. And I just think Purdy, he's a really good fit in the system, and he's doing the same things Kellen Moore did to win games when Kellen was here in Boise.
Coach, I mean, and you've worked with salary caps. You know this. Brock Purdy's making $900,000 next year. The cap's supposed to be $220 million. The following year, he's making $1 million. I mean, think about that, being able to build a roster and pay for all the other wonderful toys and not have to pay for the most important toy and still get high-level production out of it. I mean, that's got to be a coach and a GM's dream, right? What's going on in San Francisco?
Well, let's talk about that. Three of the four teams that are still playing have quarterbacks on their rookie salaries.
Yep.
And that's the best way to build a team. I mean, Johnny, your Seahawks, when they were at their best, they had Russell Wilson on a rookie contract so they could pay guys at other positions. Now that's going to change really soon for Cincinnati, and that's going to change really soon for Philly. But as you just mentioned, Purdy on his rookie deal, they got three more years of it, and that lets you pay the Deebo Samuels of the world, the Christian McCaffreys, the Boses of the world. That's how you get other good players. But once you have a quarterback taking up 1/4 of your salary cap, $50 million of the $200 million, it's harder to get really good players at other positions. And you look at Philly right now, they got maybe the best O-line in football. They got one of the best corners in football.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen once they start paying their QB $50 million.
It's crazy, man. Now you've already said this. You're close with Andy Reid, whether it's San Francisco State, whether it's UTEP. You're on multiple staffs with him. I think maybe you even hired him at UTEP because you were there a year before him, Coach. But I just wanted you to kind of break down. This is his 10th conference championship game. What do you think happens in the AFC championship game? And then, I'll just kind of open the floor for you for the NFC championship game. How do you think that game is going to go? Let's start with the AFC and Arrowhead.
Okay, well, first off, Arrowhead's one of the loudest stadiums. Now, Burrow and the Bengals proved that was no issue by going into Buffalo last week, and they've won in Arrowhead before. But it will be very loud. I think I'm sure Mahomes is going to play, but there is no way that he is 100% with a high ankle sprain. Those things linger forever.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe how good he played in the second half. But he's probably the only quarterback that that makes great throws with no feet on the ground. He's throwing those jump passes. I think he threw 2 touchdowns on jump passes last week. But when you think about it, outside of the tight end, outside of Kelsey, who do they really have at the skill positions? Their next playmaker is Pacheco, a 7th round rookie running back out of Rutgers.
Yep.
So I just think that the Bengals, their D coordinator is really dialing it up right now. They're playing their D line has been dominant. I think the Chiefs are going to have their hands full, and I think the Bengals. I think
Just
Vegas probably knows what they're talking about, making them a favorite.
And the NFC, Coach?
NFC, for all the good things Purdy's done, he's won all those games, I think, except for one at home. And, you know, it's going to be wild in Philly. That crowd is going to be lit. I think, again, you got two of the best, if not the two best defenses in the entire NFL playing against each other. I think it's just the fact that Philly can do all the same things that San Fran can, plus Hurts as a runner. I just think the Eagles have a little too much overall for the 49ers, but it should be a heck of a game.
All right, Dirk Koetter, you're not the only one in the household making news these days while you're goofing off with Idaho Sports Talk. Davis Koetter is headed to Texas to begin his coaching career as a GA for Texas football. Kaylee, your daughter, is now the head volleyball coach at the University of Wyoming in the Mountain West Conference. You've got to be a pretty proud coaching tree kind of dad. So good news this week and good news for the family, right?
It is good news. Yeah, we're fired up. I was able to talk 2 of our 4 kids out of being coaches, but the two that are going into coaching, we're fired up for both of them, and gives us 2 more teams to cheer for.
Yeah.
I wish I looked better in Wyoming colors, and I wish I looked better in burnt orange, but I don't.
Practice your hook 'em horns of saying, or whatever they do with the hand there on the hook 'em horns, coach, and enjoy the game. Yeah.
You know, it's crazy on that. I looked at their schedule for next year. They got 1 more year in the Big 12. They open with Rice. Game 1, game 2, they go to Alabama, and then game 3, they play Wyoming at home. So it's crazy world how the schedule works out.
Gosh, you get Wyoming. That is cool, man. Coach, we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy the games. We're really happy for you, and this has been a lot of fun. Can't wait to break down Super Bowl 57 and talk about the games that are coming this week. So get after it, Coach, and we appreciate you, pal.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.
Great stuff with Dirk Koetter, man. I love it.
Love that.
What he says, there is no way Patrick Mahomes is 100% with a high ankle sprain. He's dealt with those. He's seen it. Now, if anybody is Superman, we know who Superman is. But just for Koetter to say that, like, Patrick Mahomes is not 100% this week.
I was leaning towards Cincinnati. I know you love Cincinnati. I'm convinced Cincinnati's going to win big, and I'm gonna challenge Dirk. I like the 49ers.
All right. Chibuzo Abo, Boise State swingman. He talked about the second half last night. JP has those clips. We got a hell of a show for you, so stay tuned in. This is Idaho Sports Talk. Prater in the ball game.
This is Idaho